It's important to always, I think, time capsule this story. So when you see these elegant, intelligent, polished, beautiful women standing before the Capitol, they were children, many of them, when they were assaulted. Or they were, as the first victim spoke out, I love that description of a sliding doors moment in her life, where if she hadn't, walked through the door or been manipulated to do so and introduced to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, her life would have been totally different. Because I think it captures what was taken from all these victims, some of them as young as children. Are we still a country capable of holding children victims of sex abuse in the center of a story like this, right? Like, are we, can we still do this?
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, first of all, I think, the fact that you're seeing some bipartisan movement on the Hill to really hold the president, by virtue of releasing the files, hold the president accountable on this, I think is symbolic of some certain small sliver of the Republican Party that believes that transparency is the order of the day. And I think the development this afternoon, that these victims are once again at the center of the story and that they are speaking out, really changes the dynamic on all of this, right? It is not sufficient or acceptable for the president of the United States to say, in the wake of this public testimony, this is a Democrat hoax. These are women who were children when they were abused. They want their stories told. And man, I don't know about you, Nicole, but I was really struck by the fierceness, the anger, the complete lack of trepidation to go forward with their stories and accounts. I mean, Vicky was talking about one of the first speakers, Anoushka DeGiorgio, and she said, "I am no longer weak, I am no longer powerless, and I am no longer alone." The thing about sharing your story and building kinship and building sisterhood around this is that these victims clearly feel a lot stronger together than they were before when they were in the shadows alone. And that is not the kind of thing that you can bottle back up. You cannot put these women back into the corner. And I think the more Trump goes out there and the more he tries to undermine their accounts, the more he tries to wave this away, the angrier they will get. I mean, you heard another victim say, we're going to release our own client list. They have the information, whether Donald Trump's Justice Department wants to release it or not. There are people who know what happened, and they are in front of microphones now.
Let me play some of Anoushka's sound, since you've all mentioned her.
I have been threatened. I was threatened by phone. My daughter was threatened when I was volunteering to participate in, by means of being a witness in a civil lawsuit that Virginia Giuffre was bringing against Ghislaine Maxwell. I have been followed. I have been stalked. I have been followed not only by journalists, but by people who do not get out of the car and do not try and talk to me and just drive behind me as I drive my daughter to school. So the fear is very real for us. I have also been in multiple situations with both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, where they have been direct and indirect about implying and saying that if I was to talk, if I was to bring any kind of trouble, then there would be severe consequence, including death.
Vicky, just explain how she knows Donald Trump.
So Anoushka DeGiorgio first met Ghislaine Maxwell in London when she was just a teenager. She talked about this at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. Maxwell introduced her to Jeffrey Epstein, but when she was in New York, she also introduced her separately to Donald Trump. And it was reported in one of the English tabloids many years ago that Maxwell and Anoushka went, I believe, to Mar-a-Lago for a weekend with Donald Trump. Anoushka DeGiorgio has said publicly that Donald Trump was very nice to her. And there was nothing, I mean, you could see she's very powerful today, and Alex is right, they're angry, but there was no anger directed personally at Donald Trump, which is why his reaction is so baffling, I think, Nicole.
Well, I mean, this whole story has been centered in the political context Tara, around the conspiracy theories that percolated for years on the right. I mean,
Right.
that was elevated by Elon Musk when he was mad at Donald Trump, who tweeted in his final sort of act of breakup rage at Trump, Trump's in the Epstein files, I'm out of here. But it feels like what the victims have accomplished is to pull it back out of the politics and put it back into the crime scene. And I wonder if you think that moves around any tectonic plates in Congress.
I think you're right. I think they have managed to try to sort of walk on this wire and try not to offend either side. Virginia Giuffre, before she died, she told me that she believed that President Trump would release the files, that, she believed that because he arrested Jeffrey Epstein in 2019, that this would happen in his administration, like was promised, right? She also said that Elon Musk promised her over DM that he would release the files. A lot of these survivors, they are Republicans. They were hopeful that this administration, after listening to so many MAGA influencers saying that they wanted this out there, they wanted this cabal of, at the time, Democratic elites to be revealed, that this would happen. And so they're not out there saying, we want the head of the president. In fact, Brad Edwards, who's the lawyer for the victims, said, I interviewed Donald Trump in 2009. He subpoenaed him. I interviewed him about this many years ago, trying to get leads on Jeffrey Epstein from Donald Trump because they were in the middle of their real estate feud at the time. But they were very close friends at the height of Epstein's sex trafficking operation. And Trump gave him leads, although he did leave him with a very creepy anecdote about going to Epstein's house and seeing young girls in the pool area, and he told Brad that he asked Epstein about it, and Brad told him that it was a big brother, big sister program, which obviously is very creepy. But the point is that Brad said at the conference, I'm ready to work with you again. We did this before in 2009, Trump. I'm here.
Alex, let me show you what Virginia Giuffre's brother said today about what happens next.
Our plea to you, whether you're a dad, a mom, a brother, or a sister, look your young ones in the face. Look them in the eye and tell them you didn't stand against the very people who raped, molested, and preyed upon children and young women. Tell them you were willing to negotiate a deal. Money should never be what makes something right or wrong. If you vote no, your stance will be clear. You will be choosing to stand on the side of the rich and powerful, allowing money to buy your way out of the consequence. But here's my one ask. Look these survivors in the eye and tell them why. Then, look the people of the United States in the eye and tell them why. And then, when you're alone, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself why.
I thought in that moment that all this calcified acquiescence to Trump had its first shot of melting.
Absolutely. I think about the pictures of Nancy Mace coming out of closed-door testimony that was intended to do the opposite, to convince Republicans not to push for the release of these files, and she's weeping. She herself was a victim of sexual harassment, sexual assault, but you don't have to be a victim to understand, to feel the emotional impact of this. You just have to be a human being, alive in the world, to understand the sort of the unbearable and awful iniquity in this world between those who have power, money, fame, and fortune, and those who don't. And that's why this story has been so resonant since 2015, when Donald Trump himself first introduced it, when it was politically convenient for him. And now it's politically inconvenient for him, he's decided, or convenient for other reasons that have not yet been disclosed. And he's trying to back as far away from it as he can. It reminds me of his position with Operation Warp Speed. You know, the COVID vaccine was a thing he did, and in other ways would be a crowning achievement. And he's trying to get as far away from it as he possibly can because it's no longer politically convenient, no matter how many lives are lost in the process. So the same thing with this, the Jeffrey Epstein saga, revealing Jeffrey Epstein to be the criminal that he was, to be the sick person that he was, is something that is arguably good for society. And now Donald Trump is clearly engaging his party and its elected representatives in trying to prevent the truth from coming out. That is the only explanation for the shenanigans you have seen on the Hill in the last 24 hours.
Well,